different prices, correct?
For the cost to follow up on the FEMA PWs, things they were involved with and things they weren't.
That's a good point. You know, if you hire them and they were involved in writing the project worksheet, and that one just needs some clarification.
Just needs to be.
That might be much different than
Throwing them into something
that they hadn't been involved in. And they may carry a different price. And you may take a different approach on how you would react to them being involved in something that just wasn't finished, as opposed to something they weren't involved in.
Okay, so we'll get you a variety of ways of looking at it then, and costs and potential costs.
22nd will be a long meeting.
Call a question.
You have no question yet?
You didn't vote yet?
No, we haven't gotten around to
Okay.
that yet. Thank you, Susan.
I was
All in
running
favor
out
the
of
motion,
tape.
say aye. Motion passes. Ted wants to talk about administrator.
Yeah. You gotta make a decision.
Well, the job applications in the League of Minnesota Cities magazine and on their website, as you directed it to be. And so far, in one day, we've had 6 people ask for application packets, so things are being mailed out to people that are interested.
One of them was from Lewiston.
You know, it's, I really don't recall. I don't remember. And technically, and I'll repeat this again, it's not public knowledge until you're down to the finalists who has applied. So don't anybody ask me, because I don't have to say who anybody, because some people may not want their current bosses to know that they applied for this job. And that's their right until they get down to the finalists. So, but you guys have to tell me if you're having, or who your other people are. We're all gonna pick a person to be on the search team. So we need, you know, all the people need to be on the same page as, you know, so they're understanding what the job description is and the process that we're gonna go through and all that, so. I got a quote from Rochester Post Bulletin to put the ad in their paper. Wednesdays and Saturdays are their big paper. The first quote was $800 to put a classified ad in, so I thought I shouldn't be quite so long-winded in my description of the job, so I had to cut the words down a lot. And now we're down to like $400, I think. So I don't know, do you think it's important to put it in a bigger newspaper like that? Or should we just stick with the league, or what do you think? I mean, that's a lot of money to pay for an ad, but it will reach a broader,
It's gonna reach a different.
yeah, a different group of people, yeah.
Do we need an interim in the meantime?
For the months of,
We could go with it.
well, are you gonna,
And take our time looking for a permanent. We got this 25 things on this list that Wendy left that are not complete and need somebody to be honchoing them.
and what isn't being done?
Well, if they're being done, we're not getting reports on it.
Well, some of these are already done.
Yeah, some of them are 100%.
Well, I think we need an interim for the time being until we can get a qualified person other than somebody from Lewiston.
Oh, let's not throw that name out there again.
Now, if we're gonna go with an interim, Jerry, you said we have to post it?
I think you do, you should, as a matter, just post it and run it through Kathy and her internal posting to see if there's any interest, and put an ad out. Contact Semdeck and see if they have any ideas, or contact anyone that might be interested. Get your applications out. How long do you anticipate the search to take for a permanent, is the question. And
But you're gonna go through a search process for an interim then too.
if
You're gonna
everything's
have-
being done, then an argument could be said that you don't need one.
I mean, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna advertise an interview for an interim at the same time that you're advertising and planning to interview for an administrator.
Which is what we just did in Houston for our superintendent of schools. They did the same exact process where they had an interim come in for, I don't know how long they were there, 6 months.
Did the school board just,
They hired an interim while they were looking for a permanent
okay,
placement.
so there wasn't any interviews that had to be done?
Well, they retained a headhunter to help them with that, and they narrowed the field and brought in interim candidates that would be interested in a short-term position. It was advertised that way, as an interim. And then they brought in those candidates, and that person served until they interviewed and selected their permanent person. So it has been done, and yes, it is duplicative in the sense that you're doing 2 advertising, but
So what you saying that the council here could not appoint an interim?
I'm saying in the benefit of full disclosure, just put it out there to see who your applicants are. If you want an interim, and have that discussion, and if you want to hire one, hire one.
Well, I think we need to move, get somebody, so. Would that be a 2-week notice again, or what?
You wanna advertise for an interim to work for how long? I mean, an interim's gonna wanna know
Well-
how long is an interim, or how long.
Can it be open-ended? Until something, somebody is.
Kathy's point is well taken. You know, you'd have to put, for example, up to a year or something, or up to 6 months, or something to determine if your candidates would need some timeline that they would know that the position would be, guaranteed for.
And so the candidates that are applying for the full-time position, I mean, if you advertise for an interim that could potentially be an interim for up to a year, that,
You're talking to the wrong
Well,
people.
that
They
won't
just
speak-
asked me the
I
question.
mean, that won't speak too well for the people who are applying for the full-time job. They're gonna go, what? They're looking for an interim for up to a year, and they're also looking for a full-time. I don't know.
It worked in Houston for our superintendent, and they seemed to have retained a very qualified candidate or person to take the permanent job, and their interim was very qualified. And our school continued to function, and we had myriads of things going on that other schools don't, just like Rushford has things going on that other towns don't. And the school board felt they needed someone to step in the transition. Well, they actually had a small transition period, and that interim did perform a valuable service.
Was he considered or she considered for the permanent?
No, they didn't want to be considered for the permanent. That was I believe the person was retired. He was retired and just took the position until they secured a permanent superintendent. He opted not to be considered for the permanent position.